Today, I'm going to tell you how I made over $1 million online as a music producer. And the purpose of this video is not to flex or try to impress anyone, but instead, I want to inspire you guys and show you that it's still possible to make a good living as a music producer today. A lot of people are always talking about how the market is super oversaturated and there's no hope to make it online selling beats, selling loop kits, whatever it is. And although it may be a little bit harder than it used to be, it is definitely still possible. I hope that hearing my story can help you along your journey. So first off, I'm going to go over the story of how I actually got here. And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to go through and show you exactly how much money I made from each stream of income that I have. About a year ago, I had made this video talking about how I'd made over $600,000 selling my beats online with almost no followers. And it seemed to help and motivate a bunch of people. So I figured that I would do an update or kind of follow-up video to this and fill you guys in on what's happened since then. But if you haven't seen that first video, let me give you a quick rundown of how I got from 0 to 600,000, and then we'll get into my more recent story. So I started making beats when I was just 14 years old, and I actually started making beats because I wanted to make my own beats for my own rap songs that I was making, which is kind of crazy looking back at it. And pretty quickly, I became obsessed. I wasn't worried about anything that I used to be super passionate about. I used to be super serious about hockey. I quit that. I used to have straight A's in school, and very quickly my grades just went down the gutter because all I was doing was making music. I would stay up sometimes for 2 days in a row just cooking up songs and cooking up beats. About a year or two into that, I started to see a little bit of success selling my beats online. I had this one beat called Elevated that blew up, and that started making me around $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And on top of that, I was also posting my own type beats on YouTube, and that was making me a few $100 a month too. But it kind of stayed around that level throughout my teenage years, and it wasn't until a few years later where I met Dilly Got It Bumpin', and this guy changed everything for me. I remember when I met him, I was making around $800 a month, and I was just getting into making loops seriously, and he had a big YouTube type beat channel, and I found out that he lived close by to me, so we actually linked up in person. And after sitting down and cooking up for a while, he showed me his BeatStars sales for the past 30 days, and he had made $30,000. And at that point, it was just like a light went off in my head. I couldn't believe that it was possible that someone could actually make this much money selling beats on BeatStars, and especially it being a guy that just seemed like a normal dude to me. It was nuts. After my eyes had kind of been open to the possibility that this was actually real, something switched inside of me, and I became obsessed with wanting to reach that level of success that he had. So from there, I tried to copy his success, grind YouTube type beats, but it really just wasn't working for me. But I was still having a lot of fun making melodies, and I had always been sending out my melodies to collab with bigger YouTube type beat producers, and I'd be making a couple sales here and there. But at some point, something just clicked, and I had the idea, like, what if I could land one big collab beat on YouTube with these big YouTube type beat producers and get my 50-50 split on BeatStars? What if I could do that every single day? And then all of a sudden I started getting one every single day. I was sending loops every single day out to all these people, growing my email list, making connections with new type beat producers, and then eventually I would get 3 collabs a day, 5 collabs a day. And once that started to happen, the money started to roll in. I remember the first month that I went all in on that strategy, I made around $2,000, and then it doubled the next month to around $4,000, and $6,000, $8,000, over $10,000, and the ball just kept rolling like that all the way until April and May of 2021, where I was making like $30,000 a month off of BeatStars collab beat sales. And earlier in 2021, I had started this new company where I was selling my sound kits called Loopstash, and that started off making around $1,000 a month. Then the next month I made $4,000, and then it kept growing, and I tried some new strategies and got that all the way to $10,000 a month. So by April and May, I was making like $40,000 a month, and I was definitely feeling myself. I felt like I was on top of the world. I was the #1 producer. I definitely thought I was cooler than I really was, and I definitely thought that there was no way I could fail, and I was always going to be at this level. And I was a little bit wrong, but I'll get into that in a second. So me being new to making a bunch of money, I did something a little bit stupid, but it was also super fun, and I moved out to Hawaii. I got this crazy apartment that was on the 40th floor in the middle of the city in Honolulu, and this was my first time ever moving out. It had been a dream of mine to live in a high-rise apartment with the city views for such a long time, so it was definitely a dream come true. However, that month in June 2021, my income went down a bunch, and it was the first time I had ever been living alone, and it was probably the most stressed I've ever been in my life. I thought maybe it was just a bad month, but the next month it continued to go down, and it continued to go down for the full 6 months that I was living there. And going from making $40,000 a month to making around $20,000 a month, when my living expenses went up from 0 to somewhere around $10,000 $30,000 a month, my stress was definitely going through the roof. And obviously, making 20K a month is still insane, don't get me wrong. But looking back on it now, the reason that I was so stressed is because my identity was so tied into how much money I was making. If I didn't hit that 30K a month income, I kind of felt like I was less valuable of a person because I had been identifying myself as someone who makes over $30,000 a month. So I kind of felt like a fraud if I wasn't making that much money. And this mindset definitely stressed me out, but I'm kind of thankful for it because I think that I forced myself to figure out ways to keep making that same amount of money that I was used to making because I did not want to let go of that identity of being someone who made this much money, which sounds kind of stupid when you say it out loud, but it definitely made me work harder and figure out more sustainable ways to maintain my income myself without having to rely on the market being good or some big producers using my loops. So I started working a lot harder on my own company, Loop Stash, and tried to figure out some more sustainable ways to get income that weren't so reliant on other people or the market. However, there was also another huge problem that I had forgotten about: taxes. So my first year being new to making a good amount of money, I was not thinking about taxes at all. I was taking all of that money and investing it in the stock market or spending it on my new crazy apartment. And a few months after living in Hawaii, I started to do the math on how much taxes I was going to owe on all the money I was making. And I came to the realization that I did not have nearly enough money to pay off that tax bill. So from there, I had to save every single dollar I was making for like 8 months just to be able to pay off my tax bill in April, which was over 6 figures in one day, which just completely knocked out all the money in my bank account, and it felt like I was back at zero. And from that super painful lesson, I definitely learned to get my tax stuff more in order. And I don't really see a bunch of people talking about this, especially music producers and musicians, because we're just not thinking about this kind of stuff. But just as a cautionary side note, make sure that you're saving money for taxes. So after living in Hawaii for that 6-month period, I moved back home and we decided that we wanted to buy a new house. And me and my fiance found one that we liked, but we had to wait for it to be built. So we went back and lived at her dad's house. And while we were living there, I think that I worked the hardest I have ever worked in my life. I had around 9 months to save a bunch of money to be able to buy this house, buy furniture for it, and also have enough money to pay taxes and have some money in my savings account. So I kind of went into overdrive and I started working like 12 to 16 hour days. I would wake up at 5 in the morning and then I'd go to bed at midnight, and I would just do that every single night. And I was even sleeping on the couch at my fiance's house so that I didn't have to wake her up early in the morning when I would leave to go to the coffee shop to do some work. And this period was super hard because I was working harder than I had ever worked, and I was still seeing no big improvement in the amount of money I was making. I know it sounds bad complaining about making $20,000 to $25,000 a month, but I still had this stigma in my head that I was a person who made more money than that, and it was just super soul crushing to be working harder and harder and harder, doing more and seeing no results, and even declining as time went on. But I had this gut feeling that I was moving in the right direction, even if my results hadn't caught up with the work I was putting in yet. I was grinding on Loop Stash, putting out a kit every single week, and I was still super focused on getting collabs with those big BeatStars producers, and I was also super focused grinding out and building out this YouTube channel. And during this period, I was definitely putting in a ton of upfront work that wasn't paying off right away, and I'm super glad that I put my head down in the dirt and just hustled through this whole period. I'm sorry if I'm dragging out the story a little bit, but I think it's good to know for some context. I'm gonna get into some sauce that you guys can actually use in a little bit, so just bear with me. After about 8 months of working my face off, I finally had some big breaks in August of 2022. On the 26th of August, I had a song with Future and SZA drop, and also on the same night, I had a song with Lil TJ drop. And although these didn't pay me a bunch of money right away, they would end up making me some money down the line. However, it really helped build my personal brand, and at around the same time, I had a video on YouTube start to blow up. The video that blew up was this video essay I did on Noah 40's production for Drake, and at the time, if my videos had gotten a couple thousand views, it was considered a good video in my eyes. But this video just kept going up faster and faster and faster, and if we look right now, it's at 118,000 views, which for me is still the biggest video that I have to date. And I think the reason that this video did way better than all of my previous videos is because I put way more effort into this video than I had in the past. If you go back and look at my old videos, I used to put the camera on for like 20-30 minutes and just record myself breaking down some loops and send it off to the editor, and then I was done with it. However, with this video, I really wanted to put my all into into it and see if that would make a difference, and it definitely did. I remember spending a whole week just making the beat for the video and scripting out exactly what I was going to say in the video, and then I spent a whole entire day recording this video, and then another whole day writing notes for my editor on what I wanted to pop up on the screen during the video. And putting this much effort into the video made it 10 times better than any of the other videos that I'd put out before, and it kind of set the new precedent of the quality that I wanted to have in my videos. From there, the ball just kept rolling, and I had more and more videos that were doing super well, and my personal brand started to grow like crazy. So as I was growing my personal brand and getting more placements, I ended up being able to land an interview and a video on Producer Grind, which has always been a dream of mine. In my mind, that was kind of like, you made it if you're on Producer Grind. Little did I know that this interview was going to totally change the way that I run my business. I did the interview with TB Digital. We recorded the whole interview, and that was cool. However, after that, we stayed on the phone for like another 3 hours, and he was just giving me so much game, and my eyes had been open just like they had been when I met Dilly, and he showed me that it was possible to make $30,000 a month. TB showed me how crazy they were going selling these big ass bundle kits with Producer Grind and even companies like Cymatics. And I kind of had this limiting belief in my head before that, like, no one is gonna buy a kit for $100 or $150. You know, it's just like, nobody's gonna do that. However, after hearing what he had told me, how well they were doing, I couldn't ignore the strategy, and I had to try it for myself. And it was around Halloween time then, so we had the idea to make this super dark trap kind of kit. The only problem was Halloween was coming up in a couple weeks, so I had to super quick throw this huge kit together, and it was just taking over my whole life whenever I was making it. I was working 24/7 just trying to get this kit done so I could release it before Halloween. I'm looking at the page right now. This kit had 350 loops, and obviously I didn't make 350 loops in 2 weeks. I just took a bunch of old kits and bundled them in together with some new loops. It also had 100 one-shots, 2 drum kits, vocals, drum midis, melody midis, flute, violin, and cello phrases, and even a huge preset bank for Analog Lab. In the past, I had just been putting out these 30 loops for $30 kind of loop kits, and they had been doing pretty good for me. At that point, I was making around $15,000 a month off of Loopstash. But as I said before, I was kind of frustrated with the plateau that I was at, and I wasn't seeing any growth, and I really wanted to hit that next milestone where I just started going up again like I had earlier in 2021. So we put together this huge bundle, and we sold it for $97. And I was scared shitless to drop this kit. I didn't think that anyone was gonna buy it, and it was the most nerve-wracking time I've ever dropped a kit, and had such high hopes for it because I'd put so much effort into it, and I was really hoping that it was at least gonna do decent. We dropped this kit as a limited release at first. It was only available for 7 days, and in that first 7 days, we made $9,334 off of that one kit, which was mind-blowing. I could not believe that a kit could do that well in 7 days, especially with the audience that I had back then. I only had 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and probably around 10,000 followers on Instagram. To prove this to you, if we go into my Shopify right here and we go into this period of time, I'm not sure exactly when I dropped it. There's a couple different product variants. You can see right here, Dark Nights, Dark Nights, Dark Nights. $792 plus 2,041 plus 6,500 equals that 9,300, whatever that number was. And if we look at the whole month of October, this was by far at the time my highest month that I had ever had on Loopstash. As you can see, we made $19,000 that month, which in the past, my highest month had been $15,000. So once I dropped this kit, my mindset definitely shifted to, I need to put out these crazy high-end, high-value products because the results had been insane. So flash forward to the next month, November of 2022. I stuck with the same kind of strategy, but this time I wasn't creating a new pack. Since it was Black Friday, I had bundled together 25 of the best kits on my website, and I sold those all together for $97. And we did the same thing where we limited the sale for 7 days, and the results were even crazier. In that first 7-day period, Black Friday bundle, as you can see, sold 11,489, and then there's a different product variant for the same exact thing. That sold for $763. So if we add those together, we get $12,252. So by just bundling together a bunch of kits that were already out and selling it for a discount on Black Friday, I was able to make over $12,000 off that product alone in a week. And if we look at the month, I made $24,000 that month, which at that time was completely mind-blowing. I've been making anywhere from 12 to 15. So this was almost double my income on Loopstash. And that's not even counting my other streams of income like BeatStars or getting placements. And around this time, I was 100% changing my focus to building my personal brand so I could sell more kits. And I kind of stopped caring about YouTube type beats. I still do them to this day just because I make the loops anyways, so I might as well make that money passively off of them by sending out to those big BeatStars producers. But nowadays, I'm not focused on that at all. I'm fully focused on building my brand, building a community, and helping people so that in return I can build my kit selling business, because I really think that that's the lane that I'm going to pursue from now on. All right, so if we go to this next month, December of 2022, I had tried out this new product which was called the Mini Stash, and this was inspired by Max Shooter 49. He had dropped this series of $5 kits, and he said that they did pretty well for him, so I wanted to try it for myself. And as you can see, it sold 550 copies in December, so around 2,700. So definitely not anything compared to those numbers that the big kits had made, which taught me a couple of things. One, obviously 550 people bought it, so a ton of people bought this kit because it was super cheap. So it was good for getting new customers in the door who would maybe later go on to buy more expensive kits. However, it definitely wasn't the best to make a ton of money right away. So it kind of further enforced in my head that I wanted to focus more on these high ticket products, because it just made more sense to spend more time building an even better kit and selling it for a higher price and then making more money than I would have if I was just hustling these smaller kits. So from here, I came up with the idea to make this crazy kit called Elements of Soul. And at this point, most of the people who really liked my samples were the biggest fan of my soul stuff and my R&B stuff. And I think a big reason for that is because I started using session musicians and actual vocalists to help me make my samples. And doing this, although it cost a bunch of money, my samples became way better, and I feel like they just stood out more from everyone else's work. So my concept for this Elements of Soul kit was, what if there was this huge library of all of these live instrument phrases, gospel choir vocals, one-shots, presets, loops, all of this stuff in one folder, all so that anyone could make crazy soul samples from scratch. And I knew that the concept for this product was super cool, and I'd never seen anyone do something like it, but I didn't want to do the same thing that I did with the Dark Nights kit, where I just throw it together in 2 weeks and hope for the best. I really wanted to put my all into this one and make it as good as I possibly could. And I'm super happy that I did, which I'll get into in a second. However, while I was building out this kit, it did cause some problems. If we look at my sales in the beginning of this year, I was still around $12,000 to $13,000 every month, but I had stopped dropping kits for around 3 months while I was working on this huge Elements of Soul bundle. And if we look, the sales trend just kind of kept going down. And at this point, I had moved into my new house, so my living expenses were pretty high and my income was going down again. And I was starting to get a little bit nervous, but I still had faith that I was doing the right thing, building this one-of-a-kind product, and I was really banking on it working for me. And if we look here, it went all the way down to $9,000, which was the first time I had been lower than $10,000 ever since the 3rd month that I started this company in 2021. As you can see right here, it went down 40% from the last year. However, the next month, after 6 months of work, I dropped Elements of Soul in May of this year, and the results were crazy. As you can see, my sales instantly shot up from $9,000 all the way up to $26,000 that next month, which was such a relief because I was so worried that I wasn't doing the right thing and I was shooting myself in the foot. If we go to June of 2023, you can see that we made $31,000, which is insane. This was the first time that I had ever broken $30,000 on my own company, that I wasn't relying on anyone else putting stuff out or the market to be super good to make this kind of money. As you can see, during this month, Elements of Soul was still the huge driver of sales. We've got 13, almost 14,000 here, 2,000 for a different product variant, almost 2,000 for a different product variant. So this kit was just printing money, and it really taught me the lesson of building a super valuable product. As you can see, in July, it continued and we made $30,000. And again, the biggest driver for sales was Elements of Soul. And in total, since we launched Elements of Soul, it's done over $60,000 in sales as a sample kit. It's completely shifted my perspective and broken all of my limiting beliefs that making that crazy amount on a kit is impossible. And I thought that just sharing this kind of insight with you guys would be helpful, even if it's not something that you get into right away, just kind of giving you a goal to aim towards, or opening your mind like Dilly and TB did for me onto what is even possible. That being said, let's go in and actually break down how much money I've made from each income stream of my business. But before that, a major reason that I've been able to have the success that I have is because I stay very organized. And I hate to make this feel self-promo-y, but I really do feel like this product that we made will help you if you want to be more organized and stay better on track to accomplish your goals. Me and my team created this product called the Producer Playbook, which is basically this course and productivity template put into one. And it's exactly what I use to organize all of my days and all of my goals, so I stay on top of everything. If you want to check that out, it'll be the first link in the description, but let's get back into this. So my biggest stream of income so far has definitely been BeatStars collab sales. So to calculate how much I made in total with BeatStars, I took what I had made until June of 2021 when I made my $600,000 video and added it with what I've made since then. So from the time I was 14 until June of 2022, I had made $420,973 on my BeatStars. And then from the time that I dropped that video with that calculation until today, I've made $207,000 from my BeatStars. So if we add those both together, we get around $627,000 from BeatStars, whether that be my own beats on there or collab sales, but definitely the majority of it is from collab sales. And then now for Loopstash, or Sonics is what we call it now, we rebranded. If we go all the way back to when I started in February of 2021, all the way up until now, I've made a total of $434,000 on Sonics, which is totally mind-blowing. So if we add together that $434,000 with $627,000, $1,061,000, which is insane that I've actually been able to make over $1 million selling my music online. It's definitely super mind-blowing, and it's kind of weird that I'm here now. On top of that, I've probably made around $100,000 from the music industry, from publishing checks from my big songs, and also the advances that I get paid up front. But over 90% of my income all comes from my online stuff. And just so you don't feel like I'm deceiving you or trying to upplay it like I'm making more than I am, obviously there's expenses like ad spend, there's taxes, and at this point I've also got a video editor, a graphic designer, some people who are helping me on the back end stuff. So I don't have $1 million in my bank account, but I've generated $1 million in revenue. I think that if I've learned anything throughout my journey, it's just that you just got to keep going. And that sounds super stereotypical and boring, but even when I think back to all the people I used to make music with when I was just 14, everyone who's kept going for the 7 years that I've been doing this has got major placements, they're making good money online, or they're at least seeing some kind of good success within their music. If you have this almost delusional belief that you are going to make it and you just keep going and going no matter how long it takes, you're going to end up seeing some sort of success no matter what. Even with me, for example, in 2021, there was a bunch of stimulus checks going around, and I didn't know it at the time, but the reason that I was making so much money was not because I was some kind of genius and I had figured out the whole game. It was because there was those stimulus checks and people were just spending money like crazy. My identity was so attached to this idea of making a certain amount of money every month that I was fighting as hard as I could to just maintain that level and try to grow beyond that level. And it took me a lot longer than I had hoped for. Obviously, going from doubling your money every month to all of a sudden declining for over a year, around a year and a half, is not a good feeling. It's less about the actual dollar amount and it's more about the feeling of being worse than I used to be instead of being better than I used to be. But I'm glad to say that things are turning around and hopefully they continue in that direction. In business, things come in waves and you kind of got to learn to just stay in your boat, hunker down, and keep on course instead of just jumping out the first sign that something's going wrong. But anyways, that's it for me on this one. If you want to learn more in depth how I went from $0 to $600,000 a month as a music producer with virtually no followers, check out this video right here.